Our next speaker is Celeste, the CFO from QXIP. Again, I anticipated how much I'm grateful to Celeste for all the help she's given to the for the event, but I'm particularly grateful also because she's going to give a talk that I'm really interesting about, which is describing how actually cooperations between different open source projects can actually be beneficial to projects, no matter how the outcome is. So if you've seen, Celeste did another presentation related to the open source software and the business impacts of it at the recent OpenSIP event, and it was a really eye-opening presentation in my opinion. So I'm really looking forward to the presentation she'll give today. So please, a big round of applause to Celeste. And
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Lorenzo, for the introduction. Absolutely. Hi, everybody, and oops, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you all for being here, and for me it's quite exciting to be part of this event and see all these people in front of me. So please bear with me if I'm a little bit nervous. My name is Celeste, and I am an open source activist. I like to describe myself like this, even though I am not a developer. Actually, my job is working for QXIP BV for the last 5 years. I am the CFO of the company since last year. And probably, I hope you all know QXIP BV for the open source project that we manage. We are the founder of SIP Capture, and our main project is HOMER. Since I started working for QXIP, basically the main, if we want to talk, say, issue or difficulty was the one to manage a business that was based on an open source software, and we wanted to make our business model and the company remain fidel and trustful on the open source basics and foundation. Therefore, for me, it was quite hard because there are not actually books or theory or a literature related to how to manage an open source business. Therefore, the only way that we have to learn, that we have had to learn what we are doing, it was by the experience, by working with other people, and most of the times was working with strangers on the other side of the world behind the laptop. And this is why I decided to make a presentation to explain a little bit better how we do it. First of all, why have I decided to choose cooperation in the title of the presentation instead of other words? When I was choosing the title, at first I didn't think that there was such a big difference between these words. But then reading the definition from the dictionary, I realized that there is actually a huge difference between collaboration and cooperation. And the reason why I chose to use cooperation in this presentation is because when we do cooperation, the most important thing is the individual exchange of information and resources between the parties involved, where the scope is different. So everybody worked together, but everybody worked to reach his own scope, different from the collaboration where we try to make something new and the goal is a shared vision. And this is why I think that cooperation is the best word to use with open source, because in my opinion, the foundation itself and the basic of the open source is cooperation. And the main reasons are related to the foundation itself of what it is open source and what are the models and the basics behind it. First of all, we have a genuine exchange of information between people involved, where we can have the possibility to encounter different experiences, knowledges, expertise, and this brings us the possibility to have great feedback from community, Another point that is very important is that as open source starts and live in a digital world, and everybody are used to work behind the computer, we are already used to work as a team and in a remote point of view. So in this presentation, I'm not talking about individual projects or individual open source projects, because I don't believe that this exists. Even if the developer is just one, an open source project will never live without the community feedback and other parties being involved. Therefore, it's always a team effort. The thing that I like the most in our business is that humans and the human power come always before the code and the developers. And this brings us the possibility to show ourselves and be visible in everything that we do. The merit of what we do come with our name. It's not something behind the company we work for, but it's something that is personal. And this is as well gives us the possibility to increase and have career incentive. In the end, all these, I think, help us in create an interoperability between the different projects to give an added value to the users, for the end users. And this is why I think that open source is the perfect environment to leverage meaningful partnership and cooperations. Do you ever use SWAT, or do you ever SWAT an idea, or when you start to a new project? Do you ever use this methodology? Do you know what it is? SWAT? Can you please put your hands up? Okay, for whoever doesn't know what it is, this is a very powerful instrument, tool that we can use when we have to scope what are the strengths and weaknesses of an idea, of a project that we want to do, and gives us the possibility to understand what's the percentage between and the risk that we have behind an idea or a project that we want to do. So when I started doing the presentation, I believe that this was the best way to try to um, explain and provide information related to the cooperation in the open source. Starting from the first point, what are the strengths? So when we cooperate in an open source, between open source projects, of course, all the strengths that are related to the foundation of open source itself, they can only be leveraged and get better. So everything that is related to better security, transparency, reliability, continuity, the possibility to be flexible, the possibility to customize our project depending on the needs and requirements that our user can have. If we cooperate, they can only get better. Another point that is very important and also a reason why we invest in the open source is related to the possibility to um, create an idea, think an idea, create a prototype, test it, and get it to production in a very fast way, much faster, of course, than proprietary software. And this is why, of course, all of us are here, because we invest in the open source. This, of course, bring us the possibility to have product and project getting on a faster way to the market, and of course, they can be more cost effective. I'm not saying that open source is gratis or free. We all know that this is not real, but of course, we can, or at least I believe that open source is cost effective in comparison with other proprietary software. In the end, one of the most important things of open source is the community. So the possibility to have feedback, speak with other people that have different expertise, different knowledge, and can give us feedback to improve our project itself. The next point of the SWOT is the opportunity. So related to the strengths that we have just said, what are the opportunity that we can have from cooperating within open source projects? Comes again the heterogeneous expertise, knowledge, and experience of the people involved that always give us much more that would help us also to fulfill broader requirements and needs for our end user. And of course, give us the possibility to improve our product. One other opportunity is related to the long-term evolution and continuity that our project can have. If we have interoperability between different projects, of course, we can fulfill broader needs at first, but at the same time, we can also create a much stronger product for our users. The fast development and bug fixes is one of the main opportunity that we have. In a different way, it would be almost impossible, or we would need to have a lot of developers and people involved in the project. Instead, with open source, we take advantage of community and other people using our project, other developer checking out our project to be able to check the bugs as soon as they come up. All these can only bring added value for our end users, and the possibility, of course, to become a standard. So if everybody, all the project, we are using the same model, the same protocols, in the same way, of course, we are becoming a standard. And everybody can follow a standard, and everybody can be more operative between each other. At last, but not the least, we have the possibility to make much more friends. And this is something that we can see, for example, in these occasions, like today, when I'm looking in front of me, and most of the people that I see are people that I already know. And I believe they are my friends. And we improve each other knowledge, and we improve each other expertise every time that we meet and every time that we have this possibility. And this is why I think that these kind of occasions, conferences, podcasts, are very important for open source, because we cannot do everything behind the laptop. We cannot be friends just behind the laptop. We cannot give our passion, share the will and the passion that we have for the things that we do if we don't have the possibility to see each other. If you read my emails behind the laptop, it's not the same than seeing me here smiling. Of course, all these can bring us to a broader potential business opportunities, and for the role that I have in the company, of course, in the end, this is something that is important, because if you want to survive and succeed with our projects and make a business out of it, of course, we have to think also about the business side of it. Just one little note, all the opportunities and all the strengths that are related to open source cooperation don't give a direct rewards. I try to think for different time if there were some direct rewards, something that, okay, if you do A, surely you get B. No, it doesn't happen. Everything, every strength that we have has a delayed reward, has an indirect reward, but doesn't mean that it's less important. We go to the bad side. It's not all good. So, the next part of the SWOT is weaknesses and the threats related to the weaknesses. So, of course, if we make a project, we want to get the best out of it, but there is always some risk. And the main risk in cooperating within open source companies, it can be the lack of consistency, the lack of schedules, the lack of documentation, and all these can have a huge threat. So people can get distracted, can be frustrated, or can be demotivated, especially if you have cooperation where you have on one side people getting more involved, if you have on one side, if tasks are not delegated in an efficient way, and if people get involved, we get in a lot of calls, and then in the end, nothing happens. It just results in a time cost. So sometimes one of the things that are really characteristic of our kind of partnership and cooperation is there is a big lack of contractual obligations. And even, yes, we are doing cooperation on a friendship point of view. without any contractual obligations, we might encounter different expectation. And the different expectation can lead us to a not compatible scope and not compatible priorities. Of course, all these can be can have a huge impact in the result of our project, even result in a failure to our project. Of course, we can do something about it, because in the end, it's not such a riskful business, the one about cooperating between us. And if we can just think about a few little steps and a few little things to improve and take in consideration before starting the cooperation, of course, we can avoid all this. One of the most important thing is the planning. If Mitico and QXIP didn't decide it, well, first of all, how this event came up. This event came up during a conference, of course. We were there, sitting, having our coffee, and thinking, it would be awesome to make a conference in Naples and talk about Janus and do our own conference for this. And that is where the idea started. And the idea was there for a couple of years, I would say, more or less, until one day we sat together and decided, okay, now we make a plan about it. Now we decide a deadline, and the deadline is going to be the 23rd of September 2019. And once that we decided which was the date and what we had to do, there was no more going back. And there we started creating a structure. We started talk with each other on a more constant way. We started delegated tasks. And of course, planning is not only planning a conference. Planning is not only planning on a management point of view, on a project management point of view, but since I am in front of only developers, I thought it would have been important to take also this in consideration. So what I mean here, I am not saying that it's easy to do roadmap and that it would be possible to make a universal roadmap. I do believe and understand that this is impossible. But on the same way, if we want to be able to interoperate between our companies, we need to take advantage, for example, of this experience we have today, this occasion that we have today, to discuss together about the future, the idea, where we think we want to bring our project, and make sure that here and there in our roadmap there will be some point of connection where we can meet again and continue to work together. Otherwise we become forks that will never meet. If no, we go on one side and the other go completely on the other side, there will never be a way to cooperate again in the future. Therefore, please, let's take this occasion and take advantage of these occasions to discuss our idea, where we want to go, where we want to bring our project, what protocols we want to use, or whatever. You know better than me what. But I think it's really, really important to make sure that we can cooperate now and in the future. Another big point of our work is teamwork. As I was saying before, individual projects don't exist in our world, because there are always some users, some other developer, a community behind it. And the most important thing is that we realize that teamwork is something as important as the planning, as I was saying before. One of the most important point to take in consideration is that we need to understand the capabilities, knowledge, and experience of the people that are involved in the project to be able to delegate the task in an efficient way. It's not always that each of us has, of course, our own background, our own studies, but we have also our own passion, hobbies, capabilities. And most of the times is from there where the best come out. Another important point to take in consideration when we are talking about teamwork is the awareness of the difficulties of working with remote teamwork. In the presentation Lorenzo was saying before, I've done at the OpenSea Summit, I go a little bit more in details related to this. So today I'm just taking it for granted that we all know what are the difficulties behind the remote working. And as I was saying before, giving the passion and providing to our team workers with the experience and knowledge. Most of the times it's hard. It's hard behind the laptop. It's hard in chat to be able to explain everything. So we really need to be aware of this. And if we don't have an effective planning and an optimum delegation of tasks, it's quite impossible to make it work. And we know this from our experience. Actually, we've been working with quiet remote workers around the world for years, and we are going back because it didn't come up so easy and effectful, efficient as we were thinking it would come. At last, there's no need of only developers. I am, I think, an example of this, but not only. When we do projects, we need project managers. When we want to organize something, we need people able to do that. We need people behind the administration. We need graphic designers. And I think that here today, this is a great example of this. When Mitico decided to contact us, he did it because they knew that in our team we have a spread opportunity of different capabilities and different people behind. And actually, a special thank for being all here today goes to Sara, that has been quite great asset and resource to be able to get this conference done. So please, let's give her an applause. And this is why. First, you have to get the right people on the bus, and then you can decide where the bus has to drive. For me, open source is not a business model, is not a methodology, but is a culture. And I am very grateful to work for KXIP, and that has this in mind. And our foundation is this one, where transparency and open source, it doesn't mean only open sourcing our code or open sourcing our documentation. And this is why I started to do in these presentations, because as not developer, I can bring more information related to how we do things. What is our method? What is our model? How do we, why and how we got where we are? And I think that this is of great importance. If we say that we are an open source company, open source needs to be also related to the other topics of the project. It's been hard. I didn't find so many presentations and theory books when I started to study this, even though in the last couple of years I see more people like me getting on the stage and starting discussing other topics related to open source, and I think that this is exciting and important for all of us, because once again, only developers can make a business. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. Before getting to the end of this presentation, in the last couple of weeks, I have sent a survey to about around 20 open source projects and open source activists, all people I have the great pleasure to know personally, and that, I mean, they are our peers. And when I decided to do the presentation, I was thinking, well, these are the characteristics and the things that are related to KXIP and the experience of KXIP in the last years during this cooperation, good and bad. But are we a white fly, or is for everybody the same? Can we get some general rules, some universal rules that works for all of us? And this is why I sent a small survey to around 20 different projects to receive back some feedback and understand if what I was saying in my presentation was something universal or not, or well, universal for us, of course. And the survey that I sent was, of course, sent to 100% enterprises, businesses, and projects that work on the telco and RTC market. And the results that I received are quite exciting and interesting for me, because they confirmed almost everything that I was thinking, and a couple of things brought me to get more ideas in how we can improve this. So first of all of us, well, most of us work on a distributed team, and therefore all of us has the same problem and difficulties in managing a distributed team. Uh, of course, 87.5%, so almost all the companies, almost all the projects that I interviewed, they have a company behind it. Most of the time it's a limited company. And this also brought me another confirmation that an open source project by itself cannot make a business. There is a need of a company and other team, a full team behind it to make it work. All these projects are projects with less than 10 people. So we are talking about small businesses. All the people that I interviewed were project part and founders of the project. I have interviewed them for, and all of them still work for the same project. Well, most of them work for the same project. And I thought that this also was a quite interesting fact, the fact that most of these people started doing open source around, if not more than 15 years ago, and all the projects they are work on are the same that they started for. So the continuity I was talking before, it's real. Going a little bit more in details about the cooperation, I asked them some questions specifically to the cooperation that they do with other open source projects, and also here we had a quite interesting result. 100% of them told me that they cooperate with other projects, and 75% of them don't have a cooperation structure. There is not obligation, no contract. There is no scheduling how and where and about what they talk with each other. It's always some friendship, cooperation related to that specific part of the project that you want to do together. Most of the time might be short cooperation. Other times can get to a longer cooperation structure, but there is not a real structure behind it. And also very funny was the responses that I received related to how everybody see great advantages in cooperating between different projects, and 100% couldn't tell me a real failure about it. So even though when there is an open source projects cooperation that doesn't get to the result that was expected from the beginning, in the end, the result that we get, it's always something that can be valuable. It might be a piece of code, it might be a mistake that we understood we don't have to do anymore, it might be a new methodology, knowledge, experience, anything that we can get from the other project leads that anyway are people with experience. We can get the possibility to discuss together something. We always get something valuable out of it. A special thanks I would like to give it to these projects, because from all the responses that I received, they have been quite efficient and extensive in the responses they got me. So I just wanted to give us also an applause for them, and with the same transparency and the open source foundation of idea that we have at QXIP, it was quite nice for me to see that also the other project believe that sharing their experience and sharing their ideas with me was something that could have been helpful for other people. And all of them also gave me the possibility to mention them. So thank you very much to all of them. So we are at the end of this presentation. I would like to, well, this is the experience, once again, that we had in QXIP. and we've been cooperating with many companies and many other projects in the last year. But for us, this is a great resource and a great asset that we have. So we are open for anybody that want to come with us and do a piece of this adventure together. So if you have any idea or you are open and happy to cooperate with us, we have our door open. Just contact us. And at the same time, I hope that with this speech, I gave you a little bit of introduction of what it means cooperate with each other, how and what great advantages we can get, and how small and few risks we might have that with some planning and some thoughtful um, structure, we can, of course, avoid any failure. So, are you ready to cooperate? Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, Celeste. Do you have any question for Celeste? Saul over there.
Hey, Celeste. So first, thanks a lot for putting this together. I think it really helps the community. I think overall, it's very nice to highlight all the positives that you did. Would you say you have found something negative or something that can be improved upon from the results that you saw during your survey?
Well, the main thing I think that, as I was saying, one second. Well, here, I think that the main weaknesses that we encounter that I have seen also from the survey as strictly related to these points. So the lack of documentation, the lack of schedules, the lack of consistency when we cooperated might get to, of course, failures. As QXIP, we experience failures. So I'm not saying that every time that we cooperate and we have been cooperating with other companies, everything went well. Actually, no. Most of the times, the scope and the result that we wanted to get, it doesn't come. Also because most of the times we think that things come naturally, casually, fall from the sky. But we need to really put a lot of effort and a lot of um, will to make things work. So it's already hard to manage our businesses. It's already hard to manage our own project by itself. So when you have to cooperate and collaborate with other projects, we really have to put a little will and the idea that we really want to get where we want to get. Otherwise, it's just not going to come by itself. On the other side, one other thing that I didn't mention, well, it was here, but I didn't talk about it, is that yes, we are all friends, but at the same time, there are a few competitors between us. And not all the time we have great experiences and of friendship like there is between Janus and Jitsi and Mediasup, for example. I think this is one of the main experience and example of great collaboration between companies that they could result as competitors, but unfortunately, most of the times it's not like that. So, for example, Homer, with our project, we always try to be natural in this kind of politics, let's say, between the companies, but sometimes it got us to have more enemies because it looks like you are taking parts, even though you're trying to be just natural and just follow the foundation of open source, of being transparent and work and cooperate together. So yeah, we need to make sure that we know where we want to go, with who and how.
Thank you, Celeste. Another round of applause for her. And then
Thank you.
now it's